Hello to our lovely audience, and welcome to The Owl's Nest, Gamepress's own Fire Emblem Heroes podcast. I am your messenger owl Joshua, also known as Red Ferrari 1998. This week, I've got a new member from the Gamepress Fire Emblem Heroes team with me, so would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello guys, I'm Maskilraid. Nice to meet you all.
Good to have you on the show, Mask. Before we proceed into our main discussion points for today, would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself at Gamepress?
Alright, so I've joined Gamepress since May 2017, so this month marks my 40th month in here. In Gamepress, I used to write the unit pages, but right now I'm more of a backseat in that, and I only write those units that pretty much, have less coverages. So my main pet baby right now, I guess, would be the hero rankings. So I'm the one that actually manage the algorithm and actually pull all this together and put it in a nice little hero rankings that all the players could actually admire a little bit. And a little bit computing magic, and voila!
Right. It's good that you are the one who handles that sort of stuff, because that links in well with tonight's topic, so it should be a good episode, and I hope all of you watching... No, not watching. I hope that all of you listening will enjoy it. So without further ado, let's just go on with it. So, this week in Feh has been pretty uneventful. We haven't had much stuff, but still there is some stuff to talk about. So, first things first, as we mentioned last week, there is a voting gauntlet which started on Monday. Before we talk about who's currently in the final, because that's where we're on right now, I believe Mask had some things he wanted to say about voting gauntlets.
Please don't get me started on voting gauntlet in general. It's like, people usually get salty due to, wins and losers for voting gauntlets. For me, I get salty because voting gauntlet actually exists as an event, It's open secret pretty much at least in the Discord server, that I really have a very strong dislike to voting gauntlet in general. And it's due to a couple of reasons. Well, the best thing that comes out of this is pretty much only the salt and the memes that are from the voting gauntlet, Like, that fantasy of, Leon actually beating Ike. It's probably something that only voting gauntlet can happen, I guess. Honestly itself, the event itself is absolutely nothing. You could probably ask people to draw a potato and probably it'll be more entertaining than a voting gauntlet, I guess. To be fair, the only thing that probably is beneficial is probably the rewards that get every round. Probably the most important thing is the 4 orbs. It's the only incentive of voting gauntlet I see, because most of the time, if you want to go for the higher feather rewards, it's either number 1, you get absolutely extremely lucky with the multipliers, or number 2, you sacrifice your sleep just to, take note of the multiplier and actually play by then. Let's just say terrible game design.
Yeah. I do kind of agree. I find voting gauntlets to be a bit, definitely boring nowadays. I don't take place much in them anymore. I just find the event uninteresting. I'm not that bothered about getting the feathers. I only really ever play the 5, I only do the 5 maps just to get the 4 orbs and just let whatever happens happen. So, let's move on. On Tuesday we got a brand new set of quests, the Fire Blessing quests. I don't really think there's much to say about these, they're just quests to do.
Orbs!
Yeah, go grab yourself some orbs. You just gotta use heroes who are blessed with a fire blessing. For some reason, I've never understood why you can't use the actual legendary heroes for these quests, which that's never made sense to me. Why can't I use my legendary Ephraim for these fire blessed quests?
I would say though, blessings is the second worst thing after voting gauntlet, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of a blessing system either. So, just to quickly mention, you can get 5 orbs from these Fire Blessing quests, so they are definitely worth doing just to, add to your orb stockpile. You get those orbs from clearing 10th stratum 10 times, and defeating 15 foes of each colour who are also above level 35. and you have to do this with heroes with a fire blessing. But that's all to say about that. On Thursday we got the Matthew and Hector bound hero battle, and with it also came a banner containing Hector, Matthew, and Sarah. So, have you attempted the bound hero battle at all, Mask?
First try, pretty much.
You did a first try.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, enemy phase is probably the best way to go about in this particular bound hero battle. At least that's my opinion, because that's one very nice spot whereby you could literally bait 3 units in a row, if I could recall, because there's this flyer with guidance, if I could recall, and it's very easy for to stack up buffs and actually set up very nicely for your enemy phase units. Just put my adorable chicken in the range and see her kill things.
I would agree this is probably one of the more easier bound hero battles. I tried to do it free to play and I got it relatively quickly. It only took me a few tries. It's definitely one of the easier ones in my opinion. What do you think about the banner which it came with? Do you think it's a good banner?
Well, I guess Sarah is a pretty good healer by herself. I mean, her stats are pretty nice for a healer, but you still need the actually good inheritance on her, say the Raffle Dazzle combination. And for Matthew, how do I even get started? No offense to all Matthew fans right there, but I don't think Matthew is in a good spot right now, but you could prove me wrong. Moving on. For Hector, well, Hector.
It's Hector.
What am I supposed to say?
Colorless might not be that good on this banner, but Hector alone, I think, makes this a worthwhile banner.
Yup, when I press the summon button, I entered the summoning circle. No greens. And just to rub salt in the wound, no colorless as well. How nice.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. But you got an arm from it, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I got an arm.
No, hey, you got something.
I got arm, and just I can't remember what banner was that, but one banner before I actually wrote I think it's the summer banner. I can't recall the summer banner. I go and touch a blue, and bam, Micaiah. I had no idea what the hell I just did there. I just have affinity to non-focus unit, I guess. But I can't complain. I'm getting the 5 stars, so.
So we'll move right along then. If you guys are having trouble with the bound hero battle, there is a guide up on the Gamepress website, and in that guide there's even a free-to-play video made by me, which you can watch if you want a solution using only 3 units. The final thing to talk about this week is the Heroes with Luna banner, which came out on Friday. This banner features Fallen Celica, Mia, and Wings of Fate Hinoka, aka Kinchi Hinoka. How do you feel about this banner, Mask?
I would say this banner is probably one of the better banners, but then again, skills banners lately have been pretty good. The previous one having, what's the previous one again? I can't really recall, to be honest.
I think was the previous one the Death Blow one?
Is it? The Death Blow one was pretty good, isn't it?
It had Siegbert, Delphia, and Sword Reinhardt.
Yeah, they are pretty good, I would say. And the one before have the man, the myth, the legend, Zelgius. They always have, essentially, intelligence system is, I would say, intelligent in that part, that they always put at least one very, very good, desirable unit inside this scout skill banner. It's just for this case, there is 2 of them, namely Kinshi Hinoka and Fallen Celica. I wouldn't say Mia is a bad unit, but it is clear that her legendary weapon isn't standing the test of time very, very well. But Fallen Celica and Kishin Hinoka, both of them have rather interesting mechanics that players might actually want. In general, I think this banner is a very, very good banner. I would say it is at least worth it to just press the summon button and just go one full circle on the reds and the colorless, and who knows, you might get one of these units if you're lucky.
Yeah, I would agree. I think all of these units are definitely worth getting. Even though Mia isn't as powerful as she once was, she's still a very good sword unit. Celica also very good, and so is Kinshi Hinoka. Of course, being the only bow flyer in the entire game, she certainly stands out. Alright, so that's everything that happened this week in Feh. So a pretty uneventful week, but next week should certainly be more exciting given we're getting. It looks like we're going to be getting the update on Monday if the maintenance notice is to be believed, and of course we've got the brand new seasonal units on Tuesday. So some exciting stuff happening next week, but obviously we can't talk about that now. We'll have to talk about that next week. So let's just move right along. Alright, so today we're going to be discussing the hero rankings. If you people listening don't know what the Gamepress Hero Rankings are, it is an exercise that we perform every single month, where writers for the Fire Emblem Heroes team give their own rankings on each hero with each colour. It just so happens that Mask here is the person who runs the hero rankings, so before we go into our discussion, he's going to give us a bit of an explanation about how the hero rankings work, so the floor is yours, Mask.
Alright, thank you, Red. So what happened is that actually hero rankings started way before, say, December. In actual fact, we actually have our first hero rankings that involve every single unit in the Fire Emblem Heroes roster, and that was about September 2017 at the point in time. We are supposed to rank every single unit in the hero rankings, and after that we will display on our website as well. At that time, it was just a huge, gigantic table of rankings. After that first iteration, at that point in time, I was not the one who managed these rankings. In fact, it was some other writer that was doing it. After that, in December, I looked back at the hero rankings. I'm like thinking, maybe I should design a system to actually facilitate this type of exercise, as I believe is actually beneficial for the community in general. Hence, yeah, I started designing the infrastructure behind the hero rankings, the algorithms that are involved, trying to get as many people on board as possible, if that includes the Gamepress writers. And to the later stages, we also invited some of the YouTubers. Like, we are glad to have a Sage Master, Phoenix Master 1, Dire Thunder be on our lineup, and I perfectly welcome all the other YouTubers to join our hero rankings exercise as well, but that is assumed that, the type of channel that you're running is more of an educational content rather than meme channels. Well, you could argue with Sage Master actually, but Sage Master do have history with some educational content. So yeah, Red, you have anything to add?
I do definitely think it's a beneficial thing we do. It gives another way for people to see who might be the best heroes outside of our tier list. I feel it's rather interesting because each individual writer, including myself, we sort of apply our own criteria to it. So it gives, I feel, a more interesting look at the meta as a whole.
I do agree that, each writers have their own criteria, so to say. But however, let's just say that I have a rather strong mathematical background. For instance, in my undergrad studies, I actually currently pursuing undergraduate studies in quantitative finance, which is heavily hinged on mathematics and statistics, so to say. And I firmly believe that there is some numbers that will be governing, say, the hero rankings in general. Even though everyone have a lot of different criterions, I believe that all these differences could be reconciled and actually come up with a rather comprehensive rankings and breakdown on how each unit is performing and how other people are reacting to, say, different type of units in general. But at the end of the day, the algorithm on the hero rankings need to reconcile these 2 points. There are people who are on the extreme and say, God, this unit is awesome. This unit must be at the very top. Whereas the other people are like, no, this unit is this unit is not very good, so to say. The hero rankings management, I will need to reconcile all this and design the algorithm in a way to reconcile these two. Would you mind if I actually share the algorithm in detail? I think the readers and the listeners might be interested to know about it.
Yeah, I think so. I was actually just about to say I've heard of this algorithm myself, and even I am not 100% sure on how it works, so I think it will be very interesting to hear.
Alright, so what happened is that we need to consider a few cases when when I'm actually designing the algorithm. The first thing is that, new units, they are likely to be forgotten sometimes, especially if there are so many content that are coming in, And plus, most of us Gamepress writers, YouTube contributors, all of us, we do have our real life as well. As in, it's pretty common for us to make mistakes sometimes, and we occasionally miss out a unit or two. So that's one thing. We need to ensure that if, say, a few contributors forget to slot in a particular unit in the rankings, the algorithm need to be robust enough to be able to detect that. That's number one. Number two, like I said before, there are extreme ends to certain opinions. Deliberately not include a particular unit in the rankings, whereas there are people who just deliberately shoot a particular unit way up high in the rankings. We need to reconsolidate at that as well. To put it simply, I try to make it as layman as possible so that most say lay readers will be able to understand the algorithm. So here goes. So essentially, we will classify as in the algorithm were 3 stages, so to say. The first stage is actually counting the number of appearance inside the rankings, and for me, I abbreviate it as the number of points that a unit gets. After which, I also tabulate if the unit is in the ranking, what is the average rank. For this average rank is particularly special because what I do is I take the whole sample size, I remove the bottom 2 and the top 2. This is to ensure that, extreme opinions are not accounted for, and what is more important is the one in the middle, which is probably the one that's closer to most people's rankings, so to say. Because extreme values can cause a very large variance in terms of the average rankings. So removing those will remove, say, a lot of variance in the say, but I still do keep track of the variance though, just in case when I want to make some commentaries on certain stuff, I could actually do that as well. If there's anything else, I will actually sort them based on the number of people who actually put them in the rankings. So what happened is that I will actually essentially have different tiers, so to say. So tier 1 will essentially have 10 to 13 people putting them in the rankings. Tier 2 will have 7 to 9 people putting them in the rankings, so on and so forth. The idea behind that is that if a particular unit is that impactful, not much people will forget about it. So we should allow some leeway, but not too much leeway. Because if we have too little leeway, what happens is that people forget the unit and the unit will just plummet in terms of rankings. That's not what I want. I also do not want too many people forget about the unit, because if too many people forget about the unit, then chances are the unit is not that great, to be honest. So let's say, for example, in the previous hero ranking, nobody forgot Carla, for example. I mean, because Carla is that impactful. Everyone knows that Carla will change the metagame in general. Whereas there are people who forgot about Samatana. Samatana is a very strong unit, and that is why she entered into the rankings as number 20. But however, there are still some people who forget that Samatana exists because there are so many red units right now. But however, in that sense, you could also put the opposite argument, say that, hey, Samatana in relative to other of the older units, maybe is not that powerful, so to say. Well, she's still powerful, but not as powerful. Hence, we set the threshold in such a way that, say, I set it as, 10 to 13 votes will allow a unit to, just compare by averages. After that, whoever have 9 to 7 votes will go to the next group and will always be lower than those units with 10 to 13 votes, so to say. So we will have little stratification. After that, we'll sort by the average rankings by increasing order for obvious reasons. And lastly, should there be a tie? Because believe it or not, the ties do exist. I can't believe they exist as well, even though it's numerically almost impossible to happen. But it has been occurring for quite a few of the hero rankings exercises. But what happened is that essentially, some of the ties do happen, so I will actually look at the number of points. And based on the number of points, I'll use that as tiebreaker. And should there be still a tie, it will essentially be a tie. And currently, the Gamepress ranking site is not able to, process ties very well. So yeah, that's pretty much on the algorithm, so to say. I hope I'm not rambling too much about it.
No, it's fine. That was all very informative and interesting. So, thank you for that, Mask.
No problem.
And now that we've all been enlightened on how re-rankings work, let's get into discussing them.
So I guess we are ready to talk a little bit about the rankings, isn't it? So, Red, what do you think about the rankings in general? How do you think it turned out? Is it, does it make any sense whatsoever? Because I was hoping that my algorithm does its job in terms of, cleaning up the data and actually have a, representative rankings in general. So I'd like to hear your opinions.
Yeah, when I look at the hero rankings, as in the overall rather than just everyone's individual opinions, I can definitely understand the placement of many units. I can just look through the red, the blue, the green, whatever, and even when I maybe disagree a little bit, I can understand why units are placed why they are. And I think when you consider the hero rankings as possibly an indication of the current heroes meta, I think it does do a pretty good job. I think as a general sort of guideline, it correctly indicates how the meta looks at this current time.
Yeah, I do agree. As in, after I did the algorithm and actually see the rankings, let's just say that everything is within my expectations, so to say. So I in the last month, I made a prediction that for the blue side, Norway will eventually fall to second place and Hardin will take over, and indeed this time around it did happen. I guess sometimes things will slowly catch on and all those kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say all the rankings itself is pretty much within my expectations. Although, like you said, there are certain disagreements here and there, but hey, it's pretty normal. I mean, everyone have their own standards. So yeah, so we want to zoom in a little bit on the colors, shall we?
Yes, and I guess we may as well just go in order. So we'll start with talking about red. And when it comes to red, I will say from my own personal experience from taking part in these hero rankings myself, red is one of those colors that is just extremely, honestly difficult to rate just because of the sheer amount of competition you have there. We've been getting over this year alone even a ton of strong, powerful red units, and you can see that when you look at like the top 20, you've got a considerable number of people who either came out this year or got upgrades this year. We've got a lot of shifts in the red meta happening, a lot, and that I feel is making it increasingly more difficult to actually rank them.
The reason is partially because, Fire Emblem, historically speaking, has been most of the characters carry swords because swords is like literally the most common weapon to be used in the medieval settings. So I guess it makes sense that red being one of the most populated colors, so to say, and this results in a lot of units getting really, really powerful or too powerful to a certain extent. I'm looking at you, Zelgius, essentially.
Yeah, I've fought against Bold Fighter, Black Luna, Steady Breath, Zelgius a few times myself, and I can say it's tricky, even with Lance units, unless you have, say, like Heavy Spear and you can take him out quite easily, but if you don't have access to that sort of stuff, he can be quite tricky. I want to look at some other things about Red. The one thing I always notice about Red is that when you look at the Red rankings, only two of them are mages. We got Winterforger and Summertanner. This is just a thing about red mages, and they're a bit underperforming compared to the other mages, let's say, especially blue where there's an absolute ton.
For Winter Daja's case, do I even need to say why she's here to begin with?
I know, she's so powerful.
Alright, in the past, there was actually Celica. Celica was part of the hero rankings in the past, but she slowly grew out of favor. I guess the main reason is also partially because, like I mentioned before, Sword is the most common weapon type in the whole Fire Emblem. I mean, it's not just Fire Emblem heroes, but just the whole Fire Emblem universe. Pretty much everyone and their dog are using swords. Swords just outnumber tomes by so much. So, at the end of the day, if we talk about equal representation, this is pretty equal. Other than dragons, because both dragons are inside, that's not equal.
The Tikis, man, those are good units indeed.
Alright, so let's talk a little bit about Tiki, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
The main change from the previous hero ranking is adult Tiki. And whereas young Tiki just got overtaken by Carla, by Black Knight, by Widow Tarja. What's your opinions on that?
I'm not entirely sure. I haven't looked much at the Tikis, honestly, but I can understand why they are so powerful in themselves. I feel like, as well as an armor meta, we have entered a dragon meta. I can understand why she's been overtaken. Carla is amazing, there's Black Knight, there's Winter, Forge, as you mentioned before, all ridiculous units.
Well, actually, I still think that Exotic should still go a little higher. Well, at least that is my opinion. Because if you actually take a look at all the meta Fallen Robin, you know, weak to dragon, weak weapons. So Exotic could take them down. The both Hectors and all the green armors, all of them have very low resistance. And Dark Tiki could take them down. Mer, number one, she's a dragon, so she's weak to it. And number two, because Adult Tiki is tanky, she can't activate Great Flame on her. So, that's double whammy as well. So yeah, in terms of coverage of the meta, Adult Tiki pretty much got everything covered. So actually, what happened is that I personally feel that Adult Tiki should probably still be ranked a little higher in my opinion, but that's my opinion, so I don't know.
I do know that in the past the meta has sort of leaned more towards specialization than versatility. So I think in that sense I do agree that Dultiki could probably be a bit higher. All in all, they're both really good units, I feel.
Well, it's normal for, say, a particular trend to not catch on in the first iteration. Usually what happens is that after a few months, then the actual rankings will actually converge towards the, natural equilibrium, so to say. So yeah, it's fine to, underrate certain stuff until you actually think about it, like, wait a second, maybe this unit is better than what it seems. And let's just make some adjustment this month, and slowly and surely we'll make sure that the rankings fall in the correct place.
Let's move on and talk a bit about the Blues.
Alright, let's just talk a little bit about horses, shall we? Only a single horse making it in the ranking. And obviously it's the man, the myth, the legend.
Reinhardt.
What's that meme again? I know money for UIS, I now use the Reinhardt. Alright, so let's just get this out of the way. Reinhardt, what's your opinion?
I gotta commend Reinhardt, honestly, for standing the test of time. Like units such as Hector, he has still remained a powerful unit. I don't think he's where he once was, but he's still, in my opinion, that sort of powerful unit. Just having a Brave Tome alone is a very powerful thing indeed, in my opinion. And he's got that horse mobility. I can understand why Reinhardt is still a problem for a lot of new players in particular, or players who are in that sort of middling score range where horses are a lot more common.
Yeah, good points, but that begs the question, why is he the only horse to be exact? Well, that actually perplexes me.
I think the reason he is the only horse is because of that sort of power I mentioned before. Being the only one with access to a Brave Tome, it makes him very unique compared to the other Cavaliers, especially the mage ones, obviously. When we think about the other blue horses, who do we have? We have the newly released Summer Cordelia. We have Olwyn, his sister. We have Ursula. We have Summer Katria. And as I mentioned, since I mentioned the three mages, I mentioned Summer Katria, Ursula, and Olwyn. Even though I think all of them can be decent with, say, a Blade Tome and such, especially Summer Katria, I don't think any of them really just get up to the power that Reinhardt can have. The ability to just melt a unit as quick as he can.
Well, I guess another thing about Reinhardt, is also because just looking at the red units in general, most of them having low resistance actually help Reinhardt, so to say. So in a sense, Reinhardt could pretty much reliably take down most of the red cast. The only one that probably he will struggle with is Winter Tarja. Having someone being able to check pretty much all the red units, I guess people do value that.
I feel that's also why there's considerably more mages in the blue category than compared to red and green, because they have that sort of power over the red units.
Yep, definitely. I guess if you take a look, actually, seriously, there's quite a lot of tomes. In fact, I think it's about a third of the rankings actually.
There's 7 tomes including Reinhardt in the blue rankings.
If we include the dragons as well, that's half of them are magic, essentially.
There's not, honestly, many lance units, and the lance units which are there are either armoured or they're flyers, with the exception of 2, that being Ephraim and Azora.
Azura is pretty much almost all the dancers are inside except for performing Shigure rip him.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Ephraim because he's the only, notable case of.
Of a lancer other than an armored or a flyer.
Yep, at least we know for Lance armors, they have befriending fighter. Well, for dragons, they are, enemy face units. But Ephraim stood out as something that's relatively different compared to the other top 20 people.
I really like Ephraim. I think his Siegmund is pretty powerful. Even though it has a quiet, restrictive requirement in that he has to be above 90% health, that's quite ridiculous, frankly. But he does have a high HP pool and he has good resistance. So I can understand why he's got that sort of ranking. It's like I said, he's sort of got like a much more restrictive bolt fighter on his weapon, except he doesn't get the special charge. But he can run stuff like Heavy Blade. He can get a sort of bolt fighter effect, and we know how powerful bolt fighter is.
Yeah, bolt fighter, I think people can have a drinking game just by how many times do we say bolt fighter, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, bolt fighter this, bolt fighter that. Pretty much everything is bolt fighter now,
Alright then. Yeah, let's talk about green rankings. So, with green rankings, Hector.
Hector, and next month, another Hector.
Next month, more Hector. I don't think we need to say anything more about green other than Hector.
Could we stop about Hector already? Actually, no. Wait, no. Let's talk about Hector, the OG one. What do you think the original Hector going to have?
I still feel that OG Hector, even though he has been outclassed by Hector and now also Hector.
That sounds ridiculous, to be honest.
It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Even though he's been outclassed by his long-lost twins, I still think he's a respectable unit, a very extremely powerful one, in fact. And you can see that by the fact that he is ranked third on the green rankings.
Well, personally, I think one area that the OG Hector could do over the other Hectors, so to say, is that he has access to a lot of different armats,
That's one good thing about original Hector, like, if you missed out on Loverbound Hector, he can get the Berserk Armads. And, I mean, he can't use it as well as Loverbound Hector can, but he can still use it very, very well.
Yeah, because that weapon is just phenomenal. I mean, Hector always have access to one of the best weapon effects in the game, pretty much. I mean, he started off with Quick Riposte 2, which at that point in time is pretty much the most broken thing ever on the planet, pretty much. And after that, essentially he died down a little. Nobody cares about him. Actually, no, everyone cares about him. Like, the Just Use Hector meme is still there. I don't know what the intelligence system is thinking about, pretty much. And now, with this Thunder Armats, Thingamajig going on, the good news is that chances are the OG Hector will also get Thunder Armats, so that's a good thing, isn't it?
To anyone who listened to the last podcast, you'll know I didn't get Legendary Hector from this banner. So, I think I will be, if he gets access to it, giving the original Hector the Thunder Armads. I feel when we look at the green rankings as a whole, it just proves at how significant armors are in the meta, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every single green armored unit is in the top 20.
Well, there's another thing though. Every single green dragon is also on the rankings as well.
Yeah. Dragon meta and armor meta completely personified by green.
Yep, and the lowest dragon in the rankings is, our beloved chicken, and she's still 8th place.
Just go show how powerful dragons are. I mean, I know we're going back to blue here, but even Male Kana, the free dragon, got into the top 20.
Wait a second. I don't think there's a single dragon who's outside the rankings, isn't it?
I don't think so either.
At least all dragons are inside. There is 2 armor units that are not inside. Gwendolyn and Drought, which, they are the free-to-play armors, pretty much. Let's talk about Colorless, shall we?
Yeah, let's move on to Colorless. Just so people know, for this part where we're just talking about Colorless, we're going to leave healers out of it, because that's its own separate ranking. Right now it's just going to be archers and dagger units.
Alright, so what is your opinion on dagger units in general?
Dagger units are... I'm not the biggest fan of dagger units, in all honesty. I feel like they're quite underpowered when compared to archers in terms of raw, potential. I don't think daggers can reach the sort of offensive level that most archers can, especially when you consider some of the archers we have gotten. Halloween Jacob. But that's basically my take on dagger units.
What's your opinion on Self in general? I mean, because Self is actually one of the more divisive units, not only in terms of hero rankings, but in tier lists as well.
I think as far as dagger units go, I think Soph is pretty good, especially with his absolutely huge attack stat of, I think it's 36 neutral.
Yep, it's 36.
Yeah, and he's got 33 speed, which in bad. It isn't the best, but in bad. I feel the thing which divides most people on Soph is Peshkats. There's a lot of debate I know about whether or not Peshkats is really that good. Should he replace it for other options? You know, that sort of stuff. I think Peshkats is an interesting weapon, and I think it can be utilized quite decently in some scenarios. At the end of the day, it does have its problems. It's just, in general, debuffing is not generally something people do unless it's, say, on a Dark Breath Windsweep Corrin, which I know some people have. I don't know if there's anyone here right now who would have that. You know. Oh wait, you.
Yeah, I'm the one who wrote Corrin's page, and I'm the one who you know.
But yeah, in general, I think Soph's good. I don't know if Peshkat is his best option. He might do better with Barb Shuriken or even the Lethal Carrot. I don't know. What's your thoughts on him?
Well, personally, I feel that for Peshkats to work, you need to build around Soft, so to say. So if people enjoy the philosophy of find one unit that they love, after that, build around that unit, make that unit work, so to say, and have a synergy surrounding that particular unit, then yeah, Peshkats is a very, very nice weapon to work with. I mean, I'll put it on the same level, say, as, Erika Cyclin, so to say. Because for Erika Cyclin, you also need to do a little bit of building around, whereby you need to change your buffs a little to ensure that Erika get the maximum number of buffs. I guess the same thing could do with Soft in the sense that you need dancers to actually utilize the buffs well. It's not exactly a weapon that you could actually plug and play like many of the stronger units, so to say. And that is the main problem with Peshkats with a lot of people. At least that's my opinion. What do you think of Summer Noir?
Yeah, I think compared to people like, Leon, Summer Gaius, Klein, I think she might be the best of the group in my opinion. Which is interesting considering she actually ranked below Leon.
Yep.
And I think I actually did put her below Leon too. Let me quickly go check. No, I did actually rate Summer Noir above Leon. But back to my point. I think Summer Noir, I spoke about it a bit in episode 2. I think Summer Noir is very good because she has that offensive power, but she also has the defensive ability too, which not a lot of archers have. This gives her quite a bit of good versatility. She can run full offense like Brave Bow and Fire Sweep. But I also think she can even run defensive sets like Guard Bow Distant Defense. And because of that, I think she is probably the best of that sort of classification of archers. So to a sense, I don't exactly understand why Leon is above her. Maybe it's a new unique factor.
One thing that I actually rated Leon over Summer Noir, to be exact, is because he has a higher attack stat. I personally do not believe that you should run enemy phase on archer units in general. At least it does not make much mathematical sense. Unless you're Halloween Jacob, because, Halloween Jacob can run anything pretty much. You should avoid running enemy phase on the archer unit in general, because in terms of stats wise, they do not have the base stat total as compared to the melee units. And that is a small problem, so to say. Because when you're talking about enemy phase units, you need every single stat. You need attack, you need speed, you need defense, you need resistance. And to some extent, you need HP as well, but sometimes, in fact, most of the time you wouldn't want HP, but, well, every single stat, you get the benefit from it. And archers having lower BST, so to say, actually hurts them in terms of the enemy being able to do well in the enemy phase. I mean, sure, you could use guard bow or close counter, but if you're using close counter, you're not utilizing guard bow's effect. I mean, if you have a safeguard bow, then if there's a safeguard-ish bow, I guess, then I guess I could see the reason why. But right now, I don't think it is the best spot for anyone to consider using bows in the enemy phase. In fact, I think that is why I think for most bows users, you either go with the Brave Bolt route or the Fire Sweep route. And I probably mentioned it in some of my Reddit posts as well. Which is why, for George, some people mention about Partia, and honestly, I do not see how Partia could be part of the meta right now because being solely targeting on range is quite a problem actually.
So, we've talked about Colorless for a bit. Let's move on to the last point of discussion, which frankly is not going to take long. Healers.
Alright, this is the only rankings whereby horses dominate pretty much.
You can see that right away. All 4 of the Cavalier staff units, they're the top 4 immediately.
Yup. I guess it's particularly because of their support status. I mean, if there is a... I guess the same reason could say that if you have a flying dancer, they automatically score brownie points. You could say the same about staff. If you're on a horse, you get brownie points.
Yeah, you gain by increased range, you can heal more, you can attack farther. That sort of stuff, especially with how potent we've seen the Razzle Dazzle combo can be.
I still seriously don't understand why people name it Razzle Dazzle. It's not called Raffle Dazzle. I mean, it makes more sense that way. Why is Razzle Dazzle a thing, you know? Well, that's a terrible rhyme in my opinion. Just call it Raffle Dazzle, you know, self-explanatory. Can it be Dazzling Raffle as well? Ranting aside, well, actually, that comes to another interesting point. Do you think that Razzle Dazzle, well, that name, Raffle Dazzle, is it the only build for healers that actually matters?
In the arena setting, it's definitely the better one in my opinion. How they can just attack, ignore all counter attacks, and hit for max damage. But I don't think it's the end all be all. One sort of healer set I like to run is if you're not going the attacking route, if you're going the more support route, I actually think it's better to put Dazzling Staff onto the staff and then to use Wings of Mercy is a combination I like. Well, that's only if you want a sort of full support healer, someone who isn't going to be attacking much. I actually run Dazzling Staff, Wings of Mercy on a majority of my staff units. But there's a few exceptions. I run Raffle and Dazzling on my Elise and on my Jenny, and also on my Bride Lynn, just because she comes with Dazzling Staff, you may as well. I think there's probably not much reason. I think Raffle and Dazzling is probably their best combo, but I can see if you want just full support, use Wings of Mercy, I think, in my opinion, and take Dazzling Staff on the weapon.
I remember there's this meme team out there, whereby it's just a full team of Azamas, and and all the B skills are different. Some of them with Guard, some of them with Wings of Mercy, some of them is Raffle Dazzle as well, which I don't know why, because Azama shouldn't be attacking, but
So anyway, I believe we've gone on long enough about the hero rankings. I hope you've all enjoyed us talking about it. We've got one more thing we want to do before we close out, so let's move right on to that. So before we wrap up today's podcast, we're going to do something which I think is going to be very enjoyable. So, as we've been talking about the hero rankings today, I think let's talk specifically about my hero rankings. So, what we're going to do is Mask has been observing my hero rankings specifically, and he's going to question me on some of my rankings. So, I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
I sure think it is.
Alright, well then, I've got my own hero rankings here, so just go right ahead. What do you want to ask me?
Alright, let's start with question 1 then. May I look at your Colorless rankings? It is particularly concerning you put Feh as number 12. Could you explain yourself?
Yeah. I felt like Feh might come up. I'm a bit biased towards Feh. Now, I know you mentioned that you don't think archers should be used defensively. I mean, I agree in some cases, but I feel Feh is an exception, and I think Feh is pretty powerful in my personal opinion. I'm a quite defensive player in general. With Feh, just having her as a mixed range wall in general, I think, is really potent. I've got my Feh, my personal Feh, with guard bow, distant defense, and quick riposte, and just her ability to act as a anti-mage wall in general is why I ranked her that high. Maybe I should have ranked her a bit lower. I do agree, but Feh is just a personal choice of mine, as I feel that her tanking ability at ranged is quite worthwhile, especially in a sort of enemy phase meta. But no, actually, I would say that probably does not apply to archers as much, because archers are always, they're supposed to be player phase oriented. But I do feel Feh is one of the exceptions. I know you disagree that archers should not be defensively, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah, as in, just asking because that that Feh ranking stood out a lot from the Colorless rankings. It's just something that, just staring in my face right now. Another one is apparently you have a fetish over horses. Yeah, you do have a fetish over horses. You have a horse fetish, pretty much.
I mean, maybe that's something which is just stuck with me from the mainline games, where horses are the dominant class because of their superior mobility. I do feel like horses or cavalier units, I should say, with their free mobility, it does give them a bit of a range advantage, though they have been severely limited by the likes of forests and trenches, especially with trenches popping up everywhere nowadays in hero battles, in arena, or if you name a type of content, there's probably a trench there, even if it's like in the corner. It's just rare. Even in the player hands, I think you can offset it somewhat, but trenches do definitely hinder you. I can say in the current arena, like in this arena season right now, I've been using my +10 to Tanya, and the amount of times I could not get her into position because of a trench is quite staggering. But I say staggering, it's happened quite a few times where, I've wanted to put Titania somewhere to bait a unit, and I just couldn't because there was a trench there.
Well, I guess, sometimes personal feelings do get involved in terms of hero rankings, I guess. Well, luckily, you are not the only hero rankers. There are all the other people out there, and some of them really do not. They really despise horses, so to say, pretty much. As in, not to say that horses are not existent, but at least for your rankings in particular, what I observe is that you do have the tendency to rank cavalry units a little higher than normal. So that has been true not only for this month, but for the past previous months as well. Yeah, and you have a very strong what's the card? Liking over legendary Ephraim, pretty much. Actually, no, you are not the one with the highest legendary Ephraim ranking. I'll take that back, but your ranking is still pretty high.
Yeah, with legendary Ephraim, I discussed this. I think I discussed this a tiny bit in episode 3 because it came up. I love legendary Ephraim, but at the same time, I do also fully understand his drawbacks. The reliance to be away from his teammates being the biggest one, I feel, with his Flame Siegmund. It's a weird thing. It's a player phase oriented weapon on a unit who I think might actually be better suited to enemy phase. If Flame Siegmund's requirement was actually to be near his teammates, have more teammates than enemies nearby, I could see him being one of the most potent enemy phase units in the game, I feel, because he doesn't need quick riposte at that point. The reliance to be away from his team is definitely a big setback, and of course he's a horse. He's got to abide to the laws of forests and trenches. I feel my legendary Ephraim ranking is probably quite a bit of bias. If you go to legendary Ephraim's Gamepress page right now, which I wrote, and you go look at the top build, my recommended build, that's my legendary Ephraim right now.
I guess this one is all leading by example, I suppose. I guess we are running out short of time, so we will do one last one. Because I'm actually fairly curious. In the hero rankings, Alicia was placed above legendary Ryoma. And for your case, You did put Alicia above Legendary Ryoma. What is your case on that in particular?
Ooh. I think that might actually be a case of something you mentioned earlier, whereas trends can sometimes take a while to catch on. I feel I might have ranked that a bit wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Alincia and Legendary Ryoma are both extremely powerful sword flyers. I do think Alincia does have her things over Ryoma. Mainly that Brave Sword, Amity. I was about to say Fire Sweep, but in actuality Ryoma can run Fire Sweep better, in my opinion, because of the higher speed. So I don't know, I think my justification for that is what you said before, that trends can take a bit of time to catch on. I'm pretty certain next month I will rank Elincia lower and Legendary Ryoma higher.
Well, I guess that's probably a wrap to my questioning.
Alright, I think that was fun. I enjoyed that, so thank you.
Actually, I would like to add a little point on regarding rankings in general. As you can see from my questioning to Red, everyone are human, so to say, and that includes all the rankers out there. So, if anyone finds that the rankings is a little bit erroneous, feel free to hook us up. Go talk to us on Discord, discuss a little bit about our rankings, at least justify why you think that we should, revise our rankings. And who knows, maybe you have a fruitful discussion about the rankings in general, and you might have see your favorite unit on top, unless your favorite unit is Odin. But for most units, if your unit have a strong case, by all means, come at us. We are free to talk. I mean, that's what we are here for,
Absolutely. So, with that being said, I believe we are done. So, let's just wrap things up, shall we? So that's it for this week on The Owl's Nest. I hope you've all enjoyed listening. We are happy to receive your feedback, whether it be through YouTube or in the podcast channel of the Gamepress Discord. I want to thank Maskilraid for being on the podcast today.
Right, thank you very much for Red. I hope that I'm not too boring for everyone out here, so hope that you enjoy my presence here.
Before we sign off, I want to give the usual shout out to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech. He's the one who's made all the music for today's podcast, so I hope you all will check him out and give his stuff a listen, because he makes some really good stuff. So I wish you all good luck with your summoning. As always, thank you all for listening. We will see you next time.